Alright, so today we're going to show you how we do LRGB processing, and the target that we're going to be processing today is M45. This is an image shot with my RC8 and the QSI 690 that I have. So um, here we have the individual channels, and we can just open up our screen transfer function and just apply um, a visual stretch here to see what we got. So this is our blue, our green, and our red, and you can see there's a little bit of a star halo here. And usually I don't have any problems with star halos with my Astrodon filters, but I do tend to have one here with our red filter. Um, and we'll show you how we can take care of that in the final image. In particular, it's not as bad here in our luminance, which definitely helps out when we do the LRGB processing. So um, that's the linear format, and you can see what it looks like there with the visual stretch. So the first thing that we will do is that to make our LRGB image is first create an RGB image. So let's go to Process, Channel Management, and Channel Combination. Um, I've worked on this image a little bit before, so these are preloaded here, but if you are starting from scratch, just make sure you click the appropriate channels, G and B. So once you have the RGB image, you can go ahead and um, ask it to create it, and then you can do a stretch there just to kind of see what the image looks like. And you can see it has a strong kind of blue bias, um, but you can also do the unlinked channels, and then you can stretch it again. And this is um, what PixInsight thinks is the best uh, color balance as far as your stretching goes there, which is a good starting point, and we'll kind of work on this to get to that point there. Um, so what we're going to do is open our histogram transformation, and this is image 214, and we like what the screen transfer function does. So let's go ahead and copy that. So let's drag it down onto here. We can reset that, but then now apply the histogram transformation. Alright, and so the other image that we will do here is our luminance M45L. So let's go ahead and hit the auto stretch there, drag it down to over here, and hit OK. And then you can go back to your screen transfer function and go ahead and just reset it there. Alright. So this is going to come into play in a lot of the color balancing of this image. Um, what I want to do is bring out a lot more blue in this image without affecting the yellow star color that's in this image, because off the bat the stars themselves look very nice as far as color goes, but there is a lot more blue that I want to bring out. So um, essentially what I would like to do is some color curve adjustments with this mask but without the stars. So what you will do is make sure you save this image. You can do a TIFF format down here. I'm going to hit save here, and sorry, I'm going to say no. I will say let me save it as something different there. Um, Luminance for Starless mask. For star mask. Alright, so we will pretend save it. I've already saved it over here at M45L, but just save it as a 16-bit TIFF file. Um, and actually, what you would want to do first before you save that is convert it to a RGB image. So image color spaces, and then hit convert to an RGB, then go ahead and save it, um, and that way you can save it as a luminance. Just because when you import this image into Photoshop, if you don't convert it to the RGB image, what you see there is not really going to be what you get in Photoshop. But if you convert to the RGB image, it will keep the same view as you have it there. So I'm going to hit cancel there, and once you've saved it and converted, you can just undo the RGB and keep it as a true grayscale image. Alright, so in Photoshop we're going to do a couple things here, and this is our image that we had saved, and essentially we want to do a starless mask, and I will take you through the process from the get-go, but um, the end product, if I show you the layer here, should be something like this, where we've eliminated the bulk of the stars. Obviously, this center star is pretty bright, and that's going to be a tough one to kind of get rid of. But as for the most part, this will be able to give you a good starless mask. And then if you actually um, use that same image and put it as a uh, layer as a difference there, and actually th use this image as the difference of the original image, sorry, it will give you a good star mask as well. All the stars you've eliminated are actually there. So we'll just show you how we go ahead and start this from scratch. So let me go ahead and duplicate this image. Duplicate, there we go. And let me go ahead and just delete everything over here so that we can show you how we do things there. Alright, so let's go ahead and just drag this layer to duplicate it, and what we're going to do is do just dust and scratches filters there. Obviously, I use the threshold there at 1, but the radius, if you use it this high initially, it's just going to wipe out all of your details. So go ahead and tone it back to about 15 there, and you can see for the majority of things there that it takes away a lot of the majority of the stars. You know, these real bright ones are going to be tougher to kind of get rid of, but that's alright. So go ahead and click OK there, and now we're going to duplicate this top image, and now do some more uh, noise and dust and scratches, but little by little we are going to bump up that threshold. Let's do about 50 pixels, just to eliminate a lot of what we're seeing there. Now, as you continue to do this, it's going to destroy a lot of uh, the detail that you have for the nebula. So what I usually do is apply a mask to this image, and I'm going to apply a layer mask there, and just double click on there and invert the mask. And what we can do is now just paint over the areas that we want there in white to be able to erase some of these stars. So you'll go in here and just very carefully paint a lot of these stars out. And it may take a little bit of a tedious kind of task there to clean up everything that you want, but it's well worth the time investing to create that starless image. And if you get to areas where the detail is erased, you can just erase that and bring that area back. So with each layer that you are doing, you are definitely just eliminating more of the stars. And let me go back and delete some of these other smaller stars. Alright, so you'll use the hold the Control A, which selects everything there. But if you want to select the image as you see it there, you're gonna hold Control and Shift and A, which selects everything, and then you're gonna hit Control V. Cancel there. I don't know why that came up, but then hit Control V, and that's not Control A. Let me just make sure. And that is not doing it there. So let me go ahead and pause and figure out how it is that I copy this image. Alright, sorry about that. I do this all the time and I forgot how to do it, but it's Control Shift both together and copy by holding Control Shift and pressing the C key, and then Control V should paste everything on top. So Control C and then Control V. So again, this pastes what you've worked on top of there, and then we're gonna go ahead and continue doing the noise, dust, and scratches, and then let's see what 90 does there. And I'll hit OK. And then I will use the same mask and then kind of paint the areas again that I'm trying to get rid of the stars. Alright, so let's put that mask there, invert it, and let's go ahead and paint Alright, and then let's do this one more time. And you have to click on there, Control C. So to do that, again, let's just kind of go over that. You hit Control A to select all, and then Control Shift C, and then Control V to paste it on top. And noise and dust and scratches. And let's do it to about there. Alright, let's do our mask, invert it. Let's go ahead and paint again over some of these areas that we want to delete. Alrighty, and to me that's pretty close there. You can spend as much or as little time, just the more time that you spend and the more you put into it as far as trying to clean up a lot of these stars, the less it will affect the stars and the better it will be. So I'm going to just select all the layers and just drop them off into their own little folder. That way I can turn it on and off there, and you can see what it does as far as removing a lot of those stars. So you can save this image. Um, you can save it as a uh, TIFF file again, and I've already saved it over here, so I will not make sure you just unclick the layers and save it, but I'm not going to save it anymore. Um, the last thing I will do to generate a good star mask, basically all the stars that we've taken off of here, you can copy uh, this image here, paste it on top, and essentially take off the layer that you have there. But if you do the difference of the image that you have on top versus the bottom and set this layer to difference, it's going to give you a star mask there. So again, to copy what you see there, you hit Control A to select all, then hit Control C, Control Shift C, and then Control V. And so now we have our stars there, and what you can do is hit Control L for levels and just brighten these areas up. That way you get maximum protection on your stars there. And again, same thing, you can go ahead and save this as a TIFF file. I've already saved it, but what we'll do is use these two masks in our RGB data to kind of get that to the point where it protects the stars, or we can alter the stars, and we are also can alter the nebulosity separately. So, alright, so let's go back into PixInsight and let's start working on our RGB image. So we're going to use our Starless mask that we created, and we're going to apply it there. And the reason why we don't want um, the the luminosity with the stars is because if I were to apply this mask, you can see how much more it's going to start to affect the actual stars in this image. um, rather than if we use our Starless mask, it will have an effect. It will still affect the stars some, but it will have less effect on the color of the stars. So let's go ahead and, sorry, mask, show mask. This is the image that we're working on. So let's go ahead and open the curves transformation, and let's start bumping up a little bit of the blue there. And tiny bit of the green. And a little bit of the saturation there. And so we can definitely see that we get a little bit more of that blue coming through, and that's something that we want to see. So let's go ahead and apply that. And let's go ahead and disable the mask. Let's remove the mask there. And let's see if we can add a little bit of saturation here. So we definitely want to saturate our red stars, red and orange kind of stars. We don't want to really introduce anything on the magenta side. So let's just block that out, and bring this. And I'm going to just put another point here just so that I lock that there. And I can do here. Alright. And let's undo and redo there. And I'm getting a good amount of color that I want there, so I'll go ahead and apply that there. And let's go, sorry, let's undo and redo just to make sure that everything that we've done there is what we like there. Alright, so let's go ahead and we like what we see there, but let's go ahead and just apply the Starless mask again. Minimize there. Let's go ahead and just bump this blue up just a little bit more. You can even bump the green up if you think the blue is a little bit too overpowering, or if it's just too blue. But I'm liking what I see there, and I can even probably afford to bump up the blue some more there. Alright, and once you're happy with what you've done there, go ahead and apply that there. And now you can see that we have a good starting RGB image there. We still have this halo to kind of take care of, and then we have some of the dark pixels like this over here, and some residual hot pixels that we do need to take care of. Let's see where we have just little ones like that, or like this over here. And so let's go ahead and save this image. File, save as, and then we're going to name this M45 RGB. And you're going to go ahead and hit save and hit OK. Then make sure it's 16-bit and just unclick that and go ahead and hit save there. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab our RGB image that we've been working on in PixInsight, and let's go ahead and put it over here and see if there's anything that we can do as far as helping this image out. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this image so that way I still keep the original if I need to change anything that I want. And so what I'm going to do is apply curves layer mask just so that I can see where this red halo here that I need to kind of take care of is taking place. So I will go underneath this layer and now hit selective color, and a lot of this color is in the magenta side, so let's see if we can eliminate it by playing around with some of these magenta. And the magenta doesn't seem to be doing anything there. So let's see if on the reds, and if nothing seems to be working, then we're going to have to go to the neutrals, and neutrals eliminate the red, but it's we still want just a little bit of red there. And the magenta. Alright, and so what we're going to do is invert this mask and then start kind of painting over here. And the brush type, I'll usually put dissolve, and I'll go ahead and mark this down to start with about 60% and see what this does over here. And you want to adjust the brush size so that way you can see how this is happening there. Alright, and just turn it off and on, and you can see how we are eliminating that red halo there. And if you look at the mask there, that's essentially what it's doing there. And so you may have to run multiple iterations of this to eliminate a lot of what you got there. And let's go ahead and invert this mask. And I am going to even make this brush smaller. Alrighty, and what you may notice is that that is just not the right shade of blue, so you may have to come back here and with the mask in place, make those adjustments there. Alright, and I will attempt to just do one more there. And what 60% here does on the opacity, just kind of allows you to not make very hard hard adjustments there to your image, and the dissolve there also uh, kind of salt and peppers it in, and you want to make sure you invert that mask there. Sorry. Um, Alright, this will allow you to, again, if you use the dissolve, um, it will allow you to really kind of blend things in to the point where you really are not noticing them there. And if you take this sharp stretch, you can kind of see. I'm going to put all these into a mask so you can see the halo and you can kind of see it disappear. And if you need to make any kind of more adjustments, um, you can. It's red there and it's gone there. And I'm going to make one more color adjustment there to probably the blues there in the center area. And I'm going to invert that. Okay, and let's see here. And what I'm doing there is just checking to see if I can kind of detect it gone. But I think I'm pretty happy with what we got there as far as our halo removal. So let's go ahead and select everything. We'll hit Control A, then Control Shift C to copy everything, and then we're gonna Control V to paste it on top. So what we will do now is just use our little spot healing tool, and let's go ahead and wherever we see kind of any defects, we can go ahead and just spot heal them. And eliminate any dark pixels. And this is optional, but it does make a difference, you know, when you do take the time to do this. Um, your final image is definitely gonna not have any kind of these small little defects that you would see here. So um, again, just take your time making these little corrections, and it's gonna go a long way as far as your image goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit pause. Okay, so I've gone through the image and just essentially um, deleted a lot of the little artifacts that we had. You know, by clicking on and off, you can definitely see some of the dark pixels, some of the just hot pixels that are lying around there, and we have removed them. Um, some areas here where you get some of the black that's being kind of clipped there, you can hit a levels adjustment and hit the output to start little by little. Let's go by 10 there, and you can hit the click on and off and see if that helps and fill some of those dark areas. 18, and click off and on, and you can see how that definitely, let's see what 19 does. Off and on there. Yeah, that does a lot there for that area. And same thing, um, not so much there, but just mainly for this upper right hand corner where some of those darker areas have gone in clipped there. So um, essentially there we have, and let's undo everything there. But essentially there what we've done is remove our red halo that we had there. Um, did a little bit of cosmetic correction with the bad pixels that we had, and then we went ahead and line up that corner there that where the darks were clipped just a little bit. So let's go ahead and save this image as RGB. The corrected, and go ahead and hit save. Now we can jump back into PixInsight and open our image there. Alrighty. So now that we have our image here, what we're going to do is start using our LRGB uh, uh, combinations there. Now, what you will tend to notice is that you have a lot of grain as far as color, chromatic noise there, and part of the LRGB function. Let's use if we use let's do the M45L. You want to let's do it from scratch there. So you want to click off all the um, other ones because you just want the luminance. You've already stretched the luminance to what you like, and so you can hit OK. If you click the chromatic noise reduction, let's go ahead and apply that and show you what that does there. What you will find is that it removes a lot of the finer, smaller star color, and then if you are trying to preserve that star color, you're going to want to use that star mask to apply this iteration first, and then um, you can remove the star mask and apply the uh, LRGB combination without the chromatic noise reduction. So if we go ahead and zoom into here, let's pay particular attention to some of these stars there. You can definitely see that we lose the yellow on there, and so I can see over here that I missed one of these pixels. So let me go ahead and go back in here to our old image. And where is that pixel there? Alright, that is right next to that star there. And right here. So let me go ahead and click on that layer, which is the one that we want, and just remove it there. And that low area there, and this low area there. So let's go and resave that as our corrected. Yes, we want to replace it. Alright, so back to this image here. We're losing a lot of the star color there. And let me just cancel this, and let's go ahead and reopen the correct the corrected one that we just made those smaller adjustments to. Alright, so um, what we want to do again is preserve the star color. So let's go ahead and use that star mask that we used. We will apply it, but let's go ahead and invert it, which essentially, if we invert the mask, it protects our stars. And now if we use our LRGB combination with the chromatic noise, you'll see that a lot of those smaller stars, the color is preserved a lot better. Alright, so you can see that the star color is definitely preserved. Um, we're not losing any of the star color there. Um, but some of the stars may have a little bit of a hint of red, and we can go back and correct that. But what we want to do now, and actually the hint of red that you see here is from the mask. So sorry, go ahead and hit show mask. Sorry, and then you can see that again, undoing the LRGB combination and redoing it still preserves the star color in some of those smaller stars. And I'm gonna remove the mask and then unclick that, and we're just gonna do the same LRGB combination, but this time without the chromatic noise reduction, and that way it can redo the luminance portion on the stars. And if we go back and forward, you can see that the full luminance has been applied to these to all these stars, but the actual star color is preserved there. Alrighty. So when we go back from what we had there, this is our original luminance. We applied the LRGB and then with the star mask on, and then redid it with the star mask off. Um, what I will do is now apply this over here as a mask, and I'm going to do a curve stretch to see if I can get this just a little bit brighter, not as saturated. And just toggle things off and on. That way you can see things and see if that's what you like there. Off and on. Alright. Alright, so let's go ahead and enable the mask, and let's go ahead and open our histogram. Make sure you're on the right image there, and what I will do here is just bring that back just a tiny bit. And I'm going to re-enable the mask and show mask, and what I'm going to do is invert the mask. This protects my stars and the majority of the nebulosity there, but you'll still be able to do adjustments to the nebulosity as it's not a full blown out mask. So let's go ahead and hit the show mask there. And let's see if we can add just a little bit of a little hint of blue there, and it doesn't take much there, just to give it a little bit more and maybe a tiny bit less there. And off and on. Alright, so this is pretty much a finished product here as far as the extent of what I will do in PixInsight. We've worked on our RGB image and then got it to the point where we could apply the luminance there. And what you will tend to notice is here, let's go back to the point where we applied the luminance. So if we were to look at this image, and actually we'll probably just look at the one that's not corrected. So image 214 registered there. So you can see how this image is, the majority of the peaks are centered after that. if we look at the luminance, luminance is a little bit set further back. So when you apply your luminosity, you're going to see that things are darker, mainly because the luminosity is set a little bit back. Um, but that's why we bring the image back up there. Um, but the point is, you want to make sure that your luminance data is stretched evenly um, like your final um, your other image there. And so if we undo the luminosity there, and since this image has been through Photoshop, it's not going to be the best example there, but if you see there, our main peaks are stretched to a certain point there. Um, and if we look at our luminance, it's stretched about the same uh, evenness there. And so when you apply the luminance, it's going to give you a fairly good matchup as far as your data goes. If your luminance is way overstretched, if it's just way bigger as far as the this total area under this curve there, um, you're going to see your colors being washed out significantly. So in order to avoid that, just make sure that the colors that the data that you're stretching, both the RGB uh, and the luminance match in the amount of stretching that you have. Technically, if I were to back this back this up to where they would all meet, more or less they're kind of stretched the same as your luminosity there. And you can see that there. Just the color balance is off, but relatively they're both stretched pretty much the same. Um, and since the color balance is off, it may look like it's not stretched the same, but when you apply the luminosity, it's gonna work well. Um, so let's go ahead and just go back to our final image there, and what I'm gonna do is save it. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and put this image now into Photoshop to do some of the final uh, just cosmetic touches to it.